Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here again. I feel like we've been doing this a lot, but it's nice to see such a big crowd once again. I'm Scott Stevens, Executive Director of Communications for the district. We have a panel of district officials and friends here to help answer some of your questions tonight. The format of the meeting will be very similar to our previous community meeting, and there was a very brief presentation at the beginning, you might recall, and then we have two microphones kind of in the middle of the room. I think everybody can see pretty well. When we're done with the presentations, if you line up behind those, that would be great. Just make two lines, and if you can line up, in advance, kind of, that'll help facilitate things tonight. I think we'll get more questions in that way, so we're not waiting for somebody to come up. Just kind of get in the queue, and your turn will come. So we appreciate you being here. We do have some guests we'd like to recognize tonight. Certainly our school board members who are here tonight and are kind of up front in front of me. Board President Jeff Isaacs, Vice President Bill Clausen, Lisa Kremer, and Heather Weingart. Thank you all for being here tonight. As President Isaacs announced last night, Aisha Bell Hardaway, our fifth board member, is out of town on a family commitment and cannot be here tonight, but certainly would be otherwise. So we will keep her apprised of what's going on. We also have with us Mayor David Weiss. David, say hello. Thank you, Mayor, for being here. We have principals. We had talked last night, and we'll talk some tonight, about how we are going to start the school year with the Fernway students and the various schools that they will have classes in. And I wanted to recognize some of the principals who have worked hand in hand with us to make this possible. Mr. Eric Foreman of Onaway cannot be here tonight because he also has a family commitment, but he's done a tremendous job helping us out. Mr. Danny Young of Woodbury. Danny? Mr. Neil Robinson, Boulevard, who's over here to my right. I also wanted to recognize Jonathan Keenley, the high school principal, who's our host principal tonight. Jonathan, thanks. Thanks for having us. Of course, the other guy, the principal we have in the house tonight, Chris Haywood, and you're going to be hearing a lot from Chris. I want to briefly introduce our panel so you know who's up here and who you can ask questions of and such, and hopefully get your answers of, and I'll just briefly go through that, and then we'll start the program. To my immediate left is Dana Howard, the PTO president for Fernway. Dana, thank you. Good to see you. Ms. Holly Coughlin, the executive director of the Shaker Schools Foundation. Ms. Alex Nichols of the Shaker Heights Recreation Department. And thank you for being here, Alex. We know folks have had questions about before school and after school programs, and we wanted to invite the city and are very grateful for their help, and we've been working hand in hand with them. So thank you, Alex, for being here. We said hello to Chris already, so we'll skip over to our interim superintendent, Dr. Stephen Wilkins. To Steve's left is Mr. David Boyer, Director of Operations for the district. We then have Dr. Terry Breeden, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. Terry. And finally, Mr. David Glasner, who's our Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and you'll be hearing from David about the plan and some of the details that he went over last night in great detail. We'll give you a little bit of abbreviated version. We don't want to be repetitious with you tonight, but I think with that we will start off our program. David.
Oh, go ahead. Thanks, Scott.
Go ahead, Steve. Yeah,
that's fine. Thanks, Scott. No, that's fine. That's fine. Good evening, Fernway community, and a big shout out to that worldwide Fernway fan club. So, as Scott mentioned, tonight we really want to provide you some information about the opening of school, and then get to your questions. So, as you recall, when this crisis happened, we had roughly 30 working days to pull this all together. And of course, we've been working furiously to make sure that we open Fernway School. Tonight, you'll hear about the details of that. And again, we'll take your questions. At the same time, we're continuing to work the other issues such as building stabilization, work the insurance claims process, maintain our communications to keep everybody informed as we go along through this process. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and stop and then turn it over to David, who's going to lead us through our agenda. David, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilkins, and thank you everybody for coming this evening. My goal this evening is to provide you with details of our shared space plan and also to give you some information about how we reached this plan and the research that we've done up until now. So for those of you who were here 2 weeks ago, you may recall that Dr. Wilkins kind of laid out some broad categories of spaces that we would be looking at to relocate our Fernway students and staff for the beginning of the upcoming school year. And those three categories were buildings, modular spaces, and shared space within our schools. And over the past couple of weeks, we've spent a lot of time researching each of these different options. And we looked at a number of different criteria. And the criteria that we looked at were proximity, availability, condition, costs, and all of those kind of combined really lead to a full shaker experience for our students. So as you can see on this chart here, the external building option, we spent a lot of time researching. We looked at over 25 different options, and really thank you to our community near and far for your offers of assistance and support. We really heard from lots of people all around this area for offers of help. There were a couple of issues that we found as we researched building options. In terms of proximity, we were unable to find a vacant building that could meet our needs and space requirements that was close enough, either within Shaker or outside of Shaker, that was close enough to meet our needs. Similar issues with availability. We did look at some commercial spaces, but unfortunately, the amount of work that was required to try to make a space that could accommodate our schools and our students, we couldn't get it done by the start of the school year. In terms of condition, when we did find some vacant school spaces, they really weren't up to the type of condition, building condition that we in Shaker expect and require of all of our other buildings, and wanted to make sure that our Fernway students were placed in a place that made them comfortable and was safe, and it would take us too long to get conditions upgraded for our students. Costs for an external building really depended on the building, and I'll leave it at that. And you can see that with all those combined, we felt very confident that looking at an external space right now would not provide our students with a full Shaker experience. We did look at modular spaces. Unfortunately, we found out relatively early on in the modular research process that it would take too long to get modulars up and running for the start of the school year. And so while modulars do provide us with a lot of good experiences and good opportunities for students, it's not an option that we could consider for the start of the school year. And finally, we looked at shared spaces. And the truth is, as we looked more deeply at our shared space option, we found that our shared space option really does provide a lot of what we're looking for. In terms of proximity, it really is a great opportunity to have our students not just in Shaker, but in our Shaker buildings. And this means that we can provide our students with the kind of services and experience that they are accustomed to in our buildings, and that they are close to our district and within our community. So that really was a real highlight of the shared space option. In terms of availability, we've been working with all of our schools and our principals to find spaces that are available right now, and we've already found those spaces, which is great. Our operations and facilities department does a fantastic job, you know this already, of maintaining our buildings, and the condition of our buildings is stellar, and so that wasn't a concern. And though cost was not the primary concern, I think that was reiterated 2 weeks ago, certainly this is a cost-effective plan. Finally, just the Shaker experience that we want to be able to provide our students. This includes tangible and intangible items. Tangible things like being part of our Wi-Fi network, being able to provide the kinds of music, art, before care, after care programming that we want to provide our Fernway students. And also intangible things, like being part of our community, being there when we have events, getting to see our students go to school and leave school. Those are things that are all part of our Shaker experience, and we know that the shared space plan allows us to continue to provide a Shaker experience for all of our Fernway students. So I want to just talk briefly about the details of this plan, and of course, when we're ready for questions, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. In broad strokes, Fernway kindergarten classes will be placed at Onaway. Fernway first grade classes will be placed at Boulevard, and Fernway second through fourth grades will be placed at Woodbury. And I want to just, I know they were recognized already, but I really want to recognize our building principals, administrators, teachers, staff. Everybody in this district has really gone above and beyond to make this plan a reality. We're going to be continuing to work with all of our building staff very closely to ensure that we're ready for the start of the school year, but really everybody has been incredibly willing to support our staff, to support Fernway, to think outside the box, and if we could just give our schools a big round of applause for all the work that they've done. When you walked in this evening, you may have received a document that looks kind of like this, that lists the different classrooms that we'll be using in each of these locations. We wanted to provide this to you so that you can see the level of detail that we've already gotten through in terms of identifying the spaces that we'll be using, and there's a lot more detail that we're already looking at. You'll notice that, of course, the Fernway relocation plan does affect our host schools, and our host schools have made space for us in a number of different ways. They've relocated intervention specialists when possible and other student support services provider. Those providers will push into classrooms or provide services in other spaces throughout the building. We've relocated single subject teachers such as world language, music, art, computer design. Again, those teachers will be teaching in other classrooms or other spaces throughout the building. We're replacing desktop computer lab classrooms when possible and replacing those with mobile Chromebook carts. And when we have instruction that typically takes place in flexible spaces like learning labs or science labs, we're going to be providing that instruction in classrooms and other spaces throughout the building. I want to talk specifically about some of the steps that we're now taking now that we've identified this plan and what we're doing moving forward. We're already working on the specifics of the scheduling, specifically around specials scheduling or single subject areas. We're working on making sure that we're meeting all of our students' needs and providing support services. We are very confident, we've already been looking at the schedule, we're very confident that we will meet all the needs of students with IEPs or students who have other social, emotional, and academic support needs. We're already working on technology planning and making sure that our Fernway students and the relocated host school students have access to the same kinds of technology that they've always had or more. We're working on furniture for all of our classrooms to make sure that we start the year off with the appropriate furniture for each grade level. And then you'll hear about some of these other items that are listed in here as we go forward in the evening. I want to give some time to Mr. Hayward in case he has anything to add, and I know also we had a focus group that helped us reach this decision. If you want to talk a little bit about that, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, first off, I want to thank the Fernway community. Honestly, it has been an amazing couple weeks. This is what Fernway School is about. I mean, to see our community pull together on behalf of our little elementary school has been, I mean, it's been fabulous. People have reached out to me from across the country and from other countries out, far, far, far away. We're very, very fortunate to be in the position that we're in. I'm very confident in the direction that we're going. The decision-making process was hard. There were decisions that we had to make in kind of quick succession. I'm happy at this point that we now know where we're headed, and we're fortunate to be able to kind of start working right now to kind of fine-tune some of the logistical issues that face us at this point. So I want to thank David and his whole team, as well as the administrative team and all the support that they've given us. Our faculty has been fabulous. And then lastly, our PTO, Dana Howard, who's sitting down here at the end of the table. Our PTO has been phenomenal, and we could not have done this without their support. So thank you so much. So in terms of the focus group, I mean, one of the things that I felt strongly about is wanting to have some feedback from our faculty and feedback from our community. Again, in quick kind of succession, I mean, we had a meeting one day, and then the next day we had our focus group in front of us. We are fortunate at Fernway Elementary School to be able to have so many different parents that we could have drawn from. We were purposeful in trying to make sure that we had families that were newer to Fernway, people that had more experience, people from our executive board, and parents that have educational, training or educational experience in terms of their profession. Our faculty, they were specifically selected for a variety of different reasons. Our SHTA representation from Matt Zuka, obviously that was an important person for us to have, but also to have the grade levels at that moment and at that time, we were making some considerations in terms of either growing class sizes or collapsing class sizes. And so as we were looking at the faculty that we were identifying, we needed to have their feedback. The process of the focus group was simply to give us information, simply to kind of weigh the options, the strengths and the weaknesses associated with the different venues that we were looking at and the different things that we had been thinking about as the Fernway task force. And that process played out well. I mean, it provided us information. Interestingly, as it turned out, some of the direction and some of the feedback that we had received was not exactly the direction that we went. But it allowed us to have more information and allowed us to kind of reflect and think differently about the process and help us to make the informed decision that we made, which I think is truly in the best interest of our students.
All right. While we are working on Fernway, we also know it is our responsibility to make sure that all of our schools open on time. So we have much work to do this time of year normally, and we have much more now. But I'm not going to take the time to read each of these events. They are on the other side of your handout, but I do want to highlight some specific Fernway actions so that you will be aware of them and you can participate in them. Well, it's August 1st, so two big things have happened today. We've been meeting for the last 2 days with all of our principals, assistant principals, and instructional leaders to make sure that we are still focused on our strategic initiatives, that we're ready for students to come, and that work is very important, and it has gone on through this process. Even though it is more challenging, we've still been able to accomplish that. You're here at our community meeting, and we couldn't be happier to have you here and to listen to your questions. I know you're going to think of some things that we have not thought of yet, and also we're anxious to hear your feedback. Now, the event I'm going to on Friday, I've already got some plans, is what many of you may also be going to, is the Fernway Food Truck Friday that will be honoring our firefighters. Our firefighters did an amazing job. If it had not been for them, this would have been a very different meeting, so we're excited about that. We know that buses in Fernway, you haven't needed as many as other schools do, but now you will be needing them. And so you're going to get some general information. It won't be your house specific, but you will see where bus stops will be in the Fernway community that are new this year. So that will be, and the ones that have always been in place. So that comes out the week of August 12th. The last thing is I want to thank everyone that's already been helping us with this plan, and I think it's very critical for our families and our children, is the ice cream social and classroom tours and bus tours on August 20th. Oh, one other thing that every school looks for, every parent is very curious about is class placement letters. All of the elementary placement letters will be going out on August 13th. We have a tradition of sending them all out on the same day because many times people want to look at those and discuss those, and they will all come out August 13th.
Okay, we'll go ahead and shift over to before and after care, over to Alex Nichols.
Great, thank you. It's an honor to be here. From the moment that we learned of the fire at Fernway, we were committed immediately to ensuring that we provided, as a city, before and after care. I do want to take the time to introduce some familiar faces from our program. Over here, if you guys can stand when I call your name, we have our Fernway team of school-age care staff. Many of you know them. Rhonda Miller is our child care coordinator for the city. She oversees child care. Next to her is Todd Averyhart. He is the... Todd is the site supervisor for Fernway, familiar face. He's been there for a few years. We're pleased he continues to work with us. Also with them, we have Pam Corbin, Vicki Rosemond, and Sharita Freeman. As much as I would love to say they'll all be in one location with your children, we do know they will be split up. We haven't quite determined how to do that. It will be based upon registration numbers. The school district is committed to ensuring we have the appropriate amount of space for the program. The program will continue. We're going to do our best to accommodate everybody who wishes to be a part of the before or after care program. Registration begins today. Registration is available online. All Fernway families should register as Fernway families. That's the way the school will be putting them through their system. We want to follow the same procedures. Really the program, you won't see any difference. There'll be a few differences in staffing depending on the location for your child. We are going to be as flexible as possible, knowing that parents may have to visit 1 or 2 or even 3 schools to pick up their children. Our goal is to work through the hurdles that lie before us, not to cause any additional problems, and to really learn from some of the things we can do to improve the quality of the program. So we know it won't all be smooth sailing, but we're there to make it as smooth as possible. Just so you all are aware, before care starts at 7 a.m. and after care, final pickup is by 6:30 in the evening. And we do really do our best to try to accommodate working families. We are aware, it looks like most youth are at Woodbury. Because of that, the 5th and 6th grade program at Woodbury is actually rather small. Once kids turn 12, their parents pretty much say it's time for you to go home. We're not paying this fee anymore. We recognize that. So we feel that Woodbury actually has more space to accommodate the grades 2 through 4. So at this time, we're very confident, we're very comfortable. Hopefully seeing the faces of our staff makes you feel confident and comfortable as well. And then whatever questions, we're here to answer. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Alex, we'll go ahead and move to support services. Dave?
Okay. The Fernway at Woodbury, back up, lunch, our food service lunch program, all the Fernway students will be provided lunch at the buildings that they're moving to. Fernway at Woodbury, those students will eat at approximately 11:10 to 1:40, or I'm sorry, till 11:40 a.m. Woodbury students and recess will either precede or follow the lunch period. Fernway at Onaway and Fernway at Boulevard will follow the regular lunch schedule of those buildings. Student safety and security, the staff will have access to the building with their key fobs. School safety drills will follow the host school.
We shift to the next slide.
Yeah.
Bus transportation, this is probably the most complicated part of the logistics for the school. School starting and ending times will be based on Fernway's bell times. Parents will be notified of specific stop times with emails and postcards as soon as those routes are ready. Most students or former walkers to Fernway will be assigned stops along Fernway Road. Each bus stop includes a mix of grade levels. This is going to allow siblings to remain together, and students will be dropped off at their assigned schools based on grade level. For example, kindergartners will be dropped off at Onaway first, then the first graders at Boulevard, and then the grades 2 through 4 will be dropped off at Woodbury. Parents and guardians of kindergartners will be required to meet their students at the bus stop, and we'll have Fernway staff meeting the kindergartners at the bus drop-off at the schools to escort them to their classroom and back to the bus at the end of each day.
Yes, so, I'm sorry. Just like we've done in the past, when it comes to kindergarten, we are going to take great care of our little babies. We're going to make sure that they get to where they need to be. We're going to, obviously, like those of you that have had kindergartners in the past are familiar with the little name tag that we will have on them to make sure that we put them on the proper bus. I'm excited to say that the district has supported my ask or my question of having some extra support on their school buses, at least for the very beginning of the school year. So when the bus pulls up in the morning, there's going to be one of our employees that will actually be on that bus. They'll be waiting for your kindergartner, and we'll be with them until they get off that bus when they arrive at Onaway School. And so we're going to make sure that they feel as comfortable as they possibly can. The important thing is they're going to be at the bus stop with their fellow siblings, and so I think there's already going to be a comfort level. At the end of the day, just like we've always done at Fernway, we will be coming out of Onaway, and my staff will make sure that we get to the appropriate bus. Again, the sticker right here that you can see, Charlie Brown right there. We will make sure that we get the right kid on the right bus, and that our bus drivers will also have, we'll have the phone number right there for them in any kind of an emergency or an event that we would need to contact them. But again, we will have adults on the bus riding alongside of your kindergartner, helping them to make sure that they get off at the right stop. So that's kind of above and beyond anything that I've ever seen us do within Shaker. Well, the red dot has, we're going to do some different things with some different colors to make sure that we're identifying kids. So we not only have the typeface information, but we'll have different colors for different kids as it relates to the classes and the buses.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Custodial services for the Fernway staff and students will be provided by the Fernway custodians in the various buildings. They'll also be assigned other duties along with that to assist those custodians in those buildings. Classroom furniture, we're currently working to assess the needs of each classroom specifically, looking at age-appropriate furniture for each area and sourcing those. We do have a stockpile of some furniture in our warehouse, and we have resources to gather others. We've also made arrangements to have office furniture provided to their new Fernway office. Another big challenge that we face is the parking on the oval here, and it's without the addition of Fernway here, it's always a challenge, as I understand it, but going forward it'll even be bigger. We're looking at various options for adding additional parking spaces at the high school, Woodbury, and at Boulevard. We're also considering and looking into running a shuttle service for staff from nearby parking lots, and we're reviewing those options right now as well. So these are just some of the sites that we're looking at and considering for adding additional temporary parking, and we're working with the city right now to work through some of the concerns with putting any additional parking on any of these sites.
So before we transition to parent support, as Dave mentioned, parking is a challenge. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll be working through the details of expanding our parking options. It's not likely that we'll have these parking lots developed in time to open school. So please expect a shuttle service to at least get us going. Bear with us, but we're moving as quick as we can. But the city has done great work to support us, as you can imagine, with code, ordinance issues, things like that. So we will fast track this process as best possible, get these lots up so we can at least provide some parking spaces to help everyone get to their school. And the other thing that I would also like us to kind of recognize before we transition is if you should be able to see now where the staff has really worked hard, and Principal Hayward really worked hard to recreate the Fernway experience as best possible given the conditions that we have. And we do hope that you have some comfort this evening knowing that your child is in Shaker, right? In Shaker schools with Shaker staff, and particularly, of course, with your Fernway teachers and staff and your great principal. Our concern is to make sure that your student has the best care possible, and we expect that this outcome, this solution, if you will, is going to provide just that in this time of need. So our last section that we're going to discuss is how you can help and continue to help us pull this all together. So I'll turn it over to Holly Coughlin for that section.
I think you're Dana
or to Dana?
Sure. So first of all, I want to thank the community. You've been amazing already with many of the projects that we've sort of tried to lead or support through the PTO. It's been incredible. So outside of like any type of fundraising or anything like that, we've done some community-based gratitude projects for the firemen, and there's just been an enormous amount of support. So moving forward, you can continue to support us with a few of the efforts that we have going on right now. One is a virtual supply room, so I call it the supply room. It was an idea that was sort of born maybe a day or two after the fire, and Kathy Papp, Sarah Molnar were like, can we just sort of create this sign-up genius and let people give teachers what it is they need? And so we've been waiting a really, really long time to get this going, and we're really happy that just this past week we started getting some information from teachers about some of the things that they need either for the first 30 days or just for the school year in general. And the community has been incredibly responsive to that sign-up genius. It's really just wonderful to see. So you have, or should have, or please find this goldenrod sheet, which has been created. And on the front of it, there's a calendar of events. And so we're working to kind of get some play dates on the schedule. There are some listed there. There are some more that we're working to establish, so you can add to that. And then on the back, there's a list of different fundraising events that we are scheduling or have already scheduled that are available to you. And then down at the bottom, you can find the link to the supply, the sign-up genius for the supply room. So I already mentioned play dates. The only thing that I will add to that is that there are 5 play dates that are not listed on the calendar because I didn't get them to the calendar creator in time. But they are available on the district's calendar. So if you want to check there for grade band-based play dates, that would be really helpful if you want to bring your students to the schools that they're going to be a part of. That would be, I think, a good experience for them and for us to get grounded. And then the last thing is just volunteering. I mean, I don't feel like that's something that I really have to speak to because Fernway has just an incredible volunteer spirit. So we're here. I've created a Google Doc of different ideas. The ideas have not stopped coming in for ways that that parents and families and people who are not even families want to support. So I want to say thank you to all of you who have been supportive thus far. So it's going to be a great year. We're ready. Thank you.
No, not to be redundant, I'm here to thank the community as well. I represent the Shaker Schools Foundation, and the foundation is the philanthropic partner to the school district. We're proud to put the district priorities at the top of our priorities. So when this tragedy happened at Fernway, we knew that we needed to raise awareness and raise funds to support the students, the teachers, and the community. The community has been so generous. An alum today stopped just a few minutes ago before we started and had a fundraiser and raised just over $1,400. She graduated in 1990. She didn't even go to Fernway, but she felt that she could make a difference too. So Chris, we have more and more ways to support. I talked to a couple who were in their late 60s. They met at Fernway in 3rd grade. They are married, they are happily married, and they wanted to show support through a generous donation. Lomond's PTO had a fundraiser as part of the Van Aken District Barbecue, and they've provided support. So the community, far and wide, old and young, down the street and across the country is supporting. So we felt the foundation needed to support the teachers for that first day of school. We needed to disperse the start of the money, and so each classroom teacher, each single subject teacher and support staff with Principal Hayward's recommendation, receive money on what I keep calling their debit card, but it's their stored value card. And so they have money right now available from the foundation donations so they can start purchasing items. And what's great, in collaboration and coordinating with the PTO, the teachers have the ability to manage what they are getting new for their classrooms. So they will not duplicate efforts between what the PTO is doing and the foundation funds. We also know soon, once the kids are in school, that there's going to be more need. So we're waiting. I tried to give the teachers a little more money, and Chris said, let's just wait. Let's see where we are and where we need the help. So after the teachers are in the classrooms, the kids are in the classrooms, we are here to support in any way we can. So that's the Fernway Fund. A couple fundraising events that are coming up. The high school band wanted to find a way to help. So you're all probably younger parents with younger kids, but we'll be inviting you to the pre-show where they showcase their halftime show. It's the last day of band camp at noon on the stadium turf. So you'll be hearing about that. The Van Aken District, there's several of the new retail organizations that have reached out. So there won't be, you'll have a full calendar between what the PTO and the foundation and the district's doing. So thank you again.
Thanks, Holly and Dana. That was terrific. Before we go to questions, I want to thank again all of our staff and Principal Hayward. Dana, just a terrific job. And I hope that you can see that we put a lot of effort into opening Fernway schools. We have roughly 25 minutes or so for questions, but since we have a lot of information, perhaps, Scott, we can extend a little bit beyond that.
I'll think about that, Dr. Wilkins.
Yeah. But we'll do a time check at 7 and see how things are going. But I do want you to know that the staff here will be here to answer all your questions even after we close. So with that further ado, Scott, I'll turn it over to you for questions.
Thanks, Dr. Wilkins. We, as the interim superintendent said, we try to keep these meetings as tight as we can with respect for everybody's time. People have to run back to family commitments and work and everything else, but we will try to get as many questions as we can in. I'd like to ask you right now if you can start lining up. We can start taking folks without further ado. Please don't be bashful, and we will do our best to give you an answer. As always, we ask that if we would greatly appreciate a question opposed to a speech, because that would be in the best interest of everybody's time. So I'll tell you what, let's start with the gentleman right there in front of me to the middle there. Sir?
Time will tell, but this shared space plan looks like it's the type of plan that's going to work. And Chris, if you wear a Fitbit, I don't think you're having a problem getting your steps in. But I couldn't help but notice that we talked about this being the best plan to get ready for the start of the school year. Is that an implication that it is subject to reevaluation, or is this the plan for the whole year going forward and potentially and beyond if necessary?
Well, yeah. So that question was part of our assessment as well. And we believe that this shared space plan is for the duration of the year. And as part of the calculus was considering would it be feasible or even reasonable from an educational standpoint to, let's say, transfer the students again, October, November, possibly. But we weighed that question and determined that it's best to keep the kids settled so they don't have to make another transition. Chris?
I mean, that being said, we are going to, we're going to see how this works out. We're going to get the kids in there. We have done an incredible amount of planning to make this work in the best possible way. And I'm confident that it will. But as you would expect from the Shaker schools and from our administrative team, once we get into this, if it's not working, we're going to step back and we're going to do right by our kids. We're going to do right by our school and make sure that it's working, for all parties. But I'm confident that it's going to work. We're going to do everything that we can to make it work.
The gentleman with the green shirt, next meeting I'll have all the names memorized, right? Yeah.
Thank you. You've all taken some time to say thank you to us as a community. And in talking to many of my neighbors and many in the room here, thank you for all of your amazing work. And your communication has just been, I think, fantastic. So thank you very, very much. And my simple question is, I know many of the rooms have been damaged, a lot of the materials in them, and I may have missed the memo, so apologize if I didn't get this one. In the rooms are many, many books that have been donated over the years and bought through the different book fairs. What's the condition of the books? Can we as a community donate them, or can we bring them somewhere? Or we have a lot of kids' books at our house that our kids are growing out of. Anyway, anything we can help with, that would be great.
Yes, we have been so fortunate to have so many different people and different businesses, different entities reach out to us, other schools reach out to us and offer us books. I think that's going to be an area that once we kind of open those doors, the floodgates are going to kind of open, and literally, I mean, I'm confident that every single one of our classrooms will be stocked appropriately with the books that they would need at the classroom level. Today, we started the process of looking at purchasing books directly for our reading instruction. I actually met with somebody today and talked about the fact that come Monday, we're going to start transporting some of the books that have been collected through a number of different initiatives that are sitting in some people's homes right now. We're going to get those into one of the classrooms. And the teachers are going to come down. They're going to have like a little book fair of their own. Many of those books are probably coming from our neighborhood. The teachers will be able to come in, pick out what they need, what's appropriate for their specific grade level, and then we'll kind of reevaluate things at that point. But I want to thank everybody for all the book donations and for all the different agencies and entities that have donated along the way.
Thank you so much. We'll go over here, and then we'll just keep going back and forth, okay? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, so I have a question about the bus, and I apologize in advance, it's just a one-person scenario. But from all I read, the two scenarios proposed are the kids that were walkers that will now be assigned to buses, and the kids that were taking the bus previously and will continue to take the bus. What about the kids who could have taken the bus but opt out of the option? How do we make sure that they are included again? Because we opt out in kindergarten, and we assume we'll have to opt out again in first grade. But in first grade, nobody asked us anything. So how do we make sure that our son is included again in the bus schedule?
I mean, to me, all of our students all of the Fernway students are going to be riding a bus. Everybody will get a bus, a little postcard that's going to come in the mail. Everybody will be informed about their bus, pickup time and their drop-off time. So all of our students, I do not want any student walking to Fernway School. I'm walking to the new Fernway School, which would be at Woodbury, Onway, or Boulevard. Crossing Lee Road is not an option. Crossing Van Aken is not an option. And our students that live on Van Aken, frankly, it's just too far of a walk. And so I'm happy that all of our students will be safely transported through our Shaker Heights Transportation Department.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks.
Hi. I was fortunate enough to be here last night to observe the work session. So I do have a couple of questions about the details from that, as well as I was here and shared some of my notes with the Fernway Neighborhood Association, and then we have some members who weren't able to come. So in the interest of time and everybody else's question, I'm going to probably be up here a couple times because I want to make sure everybody else gets a chance to ask before I deluge you with questions. So, so I think the first question I have is for Mr. Boyer. And one of the points that came up last night at the meeting was that a lot of furniture had been removed from Fernway Elementary with the intent of it being salvaged, and it was put into storage. And then yesterday we learned that that furniture that was still, we thought, in good shape is now a total loss because it was rusted or had been delaminated. And I wondered if you have some explanation on, what exactly happened there, and maybe was there something that could have been done to prevent that? Was it not properly cleaned and dried before it was put into storage? Was it unavoidable? Can you give us some insight on what happened there?
Sure. The short answer is it was really unavoidable. But in this process, immediately following the fire, they got as much stuff out as quick as they could. They got it wiped off, they got it cleaned up, dried, and stuck into storage containers on site. They couldn't take it off site for storage until it was accounted for by the insurance adjusters. Okay, so that we made sure that we got credit or validated everything for the insurance. So during the time that it's been there in those containers, obviously, we've gone through various weather conditions, from rain to extremely hot weather and everything in between. So all of that is a changing environment within those containers. The containers are watertight, okay, so it's not like they were continuing to get wet, but they do sweat and there is humidity involved. You know, so over the time, after being exposed to that much water, just being there, these things start to happen. So it wasn't really that anybody did anything wrong with the stuff. It was simply just the conditions on the ground and as the aftermath of the fire. Also, when furniture gets that wet, over time you see things, you know, the delamination starts to happen. Even though you dried it off, and it soaked up enough water that over time it started to loosen the glue and things start coming apart. So what we found out last night just before the meeting was that the insurance adjusters as well as the public adjuster the district hired in working together had come to the determination that they were not comfortable putting any of that furniture back in the classrooms, okay? Now that doesn't mean that some of it wasn't able to be sat on or used, necessarily, but what it means is that given the environment that it came out of and that it's been in, they aren't comfortable putting it in a classroom for the safety of kids, okay? So they came to the district and they said, okay, if you want to use this, we need you to waive the liability of using that furniture, and basically the district take on that liability. I, for one, am not going to be the guy that says something's safe for kids when the experts are telling me that it isn't, okay? So that's how we came to that decision, that it was all going to be a loss and that we would seek furniture elsewhere.
Sure.
Okay.
And I would imagine these are the hardier type pieces, right? Tables, desks, chairs, things like that. Can we assume then that some of the more fragile type of things that have gone into storage are then also going to be a total loss, like books or supplies, things like that? Would they, you know, having been under the same conditions, are they going to be just as damaged?
Not necessarily, because those items were quickly removed from the site. They were inventoried and removed from the site as quickly as they could be, and taken to a warehouse under controlled conditions, where they were able they go through a different process of drying the stuff out and taking care of it. Some of it will be a loss, but at this point it's too early to assume anything along those lines, so we're going to have to wait and see.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. I saw on one of the schedules, and I apologize if this was addressed, but it said that there were several events that would happen at the schools. Can I assure my children that they will get a chance to see the inside of the schools before the first day?
Yeah, August 20th will be the first time that we will be able to have the kids in the schools. And so right now what we're starting to do as of today is we're starting to pull furniture out of the classrooms that we're headed towards. Then we got to get, we got to get furniture, and we're pulling furniture from all across the district, and we're fortunate to have other districts that are donating some stuff our way. So we'll get the furniture in there. We're going to get the teachers in there as fast as we possibly can. I reference it with them as kind of like a barn raising. They're going to, as soon as we get one room ready, I'm going to let the teachers know, and you know, if it's Ms. Vale's room and it's time to get that room ready, I think we're going to have a team effort. We're going to get in there and we're going to make that room look fabulous. Okay, here we go to the next room, and we're going to build one room at a time. And then we're going to be ready for the kids to come in. There's nothing, I mean, in the summertime, I always struggle with when I'm usually working on placement or doing kind of ordering or that kind of work, and sometimes parents bring their kids into the school. There's stuff all through the hallways. It's a mess. It smells funny because there's chemicals. You know, we're doing painting, we're stripping floors, all these different things. That is not the first experience that I want for our students at Fernway, and it's definitely not the first experience I want for when we're heading into a new space, that there might be some nerves. And so when our students walk in, I want our students to have the best opportunity to see these classrooms look as good as they possibly can.
Okay. So August 20th will be the day.
Well, that'll be the first day that, yeah. I mean, if we can get them in earlier, or if there is a chance that we can expedite that, we will. Okay. But I think that, you know, logistically, I think that's probably, you know, a safe bet.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
One of the beloved Fernway traditions that we will miss is the first day of school and lining up on the blacktop. Is there any way, Dana, that we can still do a parent coffee on the front lawn of Fernway? Because I think all the parents are going to need a hug.
So I was going to say, yes, we are working on coordinating coffee on the lawn. Been in contact with some other members of the PTO, and so we're working on that. I cannot answer about the front lawn of Fernway, but I will write it down and get back to you.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
I was just wondering if anybody could comment on the Fernway School itself and what the status is. Do we have good feelings right now? Do we have bad feelings right now, or somewhere in between? Anybody?
I'll take that one, and I think, again, for the moment, for the immediate moment, right, we're still conducting building stabilization, and in particular, we really need to get the temporary roof onto the structure. That temporary roof is critical to keep the water out. So every day, we are working towards that happening, and I hope to have that temporary roof permitted sometime next week, and then get that structure up as quick as we can. Once we get that temporary roof on and keep the water out of the building, then we'll really be able to start getting into assessing the building and kind of the structural quality or structural condition, and then make those assessments there, from there.
Hi. So I think when you were talking about the bus situation, you talked a lot about the assistance provided to kindergartners. And the reality is that most of our students have never ridden, or many of our children have never ridden the bus. So I have an incoming first grader. She will know, she's never been to Boulevard. She doesn't know when to, if it's stopping at Onaway first, when do I get off? Where am I going in this building? Is it possible to extend some of those assistance, on the bus? Here's your stop, now get off, in the morning and in the afternoon and in and out of the building, to the other grade levels as well?
That's something we can look into. The thing that we're very fortunate about in this situation is that Onaway, literally, you could pretty much hit a golf ball from Onaway's property and hit the side of Boulevard. It's very, very close, and so it's right down the street. In fact, in the wintertime, having worked at Onaway and having worked at Boulevard, you can actually see, those two buildings. So it's going to be a quick kind of drop-off. I'm definitely going to be, part of this process as well. All options are on the table at this point. What will be nice is that our kids, our first graders have had experiences riding the buses in the past. We've gone on field trips. We've taken the bus over to the high school for the planetarium. They've had those experiences. On the 20th, we will have school buses available as well, and so we're going to have a chance for the kids to get back on the school bus and ride around. Some parents will want to choose to ride alongside of their child, and others it'll be a dry run to just ride the bus by yourself, and that has happened, historically or traditionally in the past. So we can look into that. We want to make sure that all of our students feel comfortable with the entire process.
Mr. Hayward must be a good golfer if he can hit Boulevard, but
I've been working on my game.
Yeah, you are good, Chris.
Not this summer.
Jeremy?
Not lately.
So again, my next question had to do with the focus group, and I really applaud you guys for reaching out to parents and the community as a whole to be part of the decision-making process. So I was wondering what the role of the focus group would be going forward as more longer-term decisions are made. It sounds like they were asked to provide a lot of feedback that went into your decision-making. I would encourage you to actually maybe try to give them a little bit more decision-making power and authority, and allow them to have some accountability in this process, so they can be representatives to the rest of us in the neighborhood. So if you could speak a little bit about the future of the focus group and where that's going forward, I'd appreciate it.
Right now, there's no plan to reconvene the focus group. Our plan is that we would be able to make it through the rest of the school year. Should that not be the case, should there be some kind of extreme challenges and that we feel that we need to get community input because things are not going well, I'm optimistic that things are going to go well. I love the idea, and I was a big fan of the concept of getting our families involved, just like we did the facilities study, and we had this entire cafeteria space filled with people that had great ideas and provided wonderful input. I always welcome, my PTO would tell you that, my staff, many of which are sitting back here, would tell you that I'm a true believer in getting a number of people around the table to help make decisions. I told the staff I wanted to be able to take teachers and look at different spaces and give me a day, give me a little bit of time to be able to help make the best informed decision. So I totally applaud that concept and that idea, and I will not hesitate to get our parents, our families, our residents involved with the process.
I know there will be, in addition to what's going on temporarily this year, there's going to be a lot of long-term decisions that are made as well. And I think bringing parents, in and having them feel like they have some ownership in that decision and some participation in that decision, I think would be very helpful. I know it would be for me, and I would imagine it would be for a lot of others as well.
For the kids that are going to be going to, like the first graders are going to be at Boulevard and kindergartners at, or whatever, Onaway, is there a strategy to integrate the kids within this other school, or is it basically like, here are your 3 classes of Fernway, you're your own little group in this school, and you're just, you know, not going to experience this cross grade? So that's one question. And then secondly, in a school, if you had a, like, you needed to go to the principal and you're at Boulevard, like, who would be your principal? Or you needed to see the nurse, or these things that are sort of like school specific, but we can't have 3 of you in, you know, 3 different buildings. So how is that gonna work?
Okay, so the first question, I'm actually meeting with the other principals that are involved tomorrow. So tomorrow afternoon, we're gonna have a meeting. We're gonna go through some of the logistical issues. I feel strongly that this experience for our students, it's going to be a Fernway year. We are not totally integrating in the same sense of becoming Onaway students and becoming Boulevard students. We will be able to commingle on certain events. Obviously, our students will be hearing the announcements that are made by those different schools, and they will be hearing what we're having, you know, what we're doing. We will have our own, I mean, in my perfect world, we'd have our own fall festival, and we'd have our own events. And the kids, and the beauty of this is that our kids are going to build some relationships with kids across the city in ways that they've never done before. And so I think in many ways it's going to kind of strengthen our community, but we will have our identity. There was never a discussion about taking our students and just kind of folding them into the other classes in the other buildings. I mean, it's Fernway teachers with Fernway students. For me, in terms of getting around to the different buildings, some of you know that the PTO years ago had actually created a cardboard cutout of me. I have to tell you that it was damaged by the water damage. Honestly, I went looking for that fairly quickly, and I was happy to find it was damaged. Robin Eisen, I'm not sure if she was in here, she was the one that came up with that idea years and years ago. So I won't be able to take the cardboard cutout of me, but I am going to work really hard to be as present as I possibly can in all the buildings, and I'm going to be kind of buzzing around. One of the moms said to me yesterday, they're like, well, maybe we can get you a Fernway Forever Uber, and it'll just be parked outside of wherever you are, and we'll get you to wherever you need to be. I'm going to be at all 3 buildings. I'm not going to be holed up at Woodbury. Woodbury is where my office will be. But definitely at the beginning with our youngest students, being a former first grade teacher myself, it's very, very important to me that our youngest students feel comfortable and that they are not left out on an island. They're not left out, you know, just the 3 classes at Onaway, the 3 classes at over Boulevard. They will be part of Fernway. There may be times when we're bringing them over, for instance, let's talk about COSI. And so our COSI experience, we may be transporting students over so that we can have a shared experience in one of the buildings, or, you know, even possibly moving them from Woodbury to one of those schools. So we're still working through some of that, but my goal is for us to have our own unique experiences, but also at the same time be able to benefit from some of the great things that our other schools are doing.
And just to add, I think it would be a little bit weird if you're like, here I'm a first grader and we have our own recess and we don't get to hang out with these other first grade kids who do. So like, I get the Fernway thing and I am so for it, but at the same time I feel like part of being a student in a school is being a part of a school, and so you're not with your Fernway school, you're not with all your other grades, especially for those lone grades in the other schools. Like to me, for my child who will be a first grader, I would like him to feel like he's a part of a school, maybe he's a part of 2 schools, you know, rather than like he's just these 3 little grades, 3 classes in 1 grade in Boulevard.
Yeah, so, and I apologize because I'm trying to make sure I'm not repeating exactly what I said last night. At Boulevard and at Onaway, our students will be playing and having lunch and recess will be integrated and kind of commingled with those 2 schools. Okay. And so our first graders will be out on the playground with the first graders. Our kindergartners will be outside at Onaway with their fellow kindergarten students. Our students are going to have an opportunity to eat in a lunchroom, which a number of the kids I've talked to, like, they're excited about the bus. And they're excited about they're like, Mr. Hayward, is it true we're going to have a lunchroom now? And I'm like, yes, it is. Yeah, so they're going to have a chance to eat with their new friends from Onaway and from Boulevard. Woodbury, on the other hand, that's going to be different. I felt strongly that I wanted our younger students to have their own playtime. They will, at this point, and that can change, but at this point we will be playing in advance of our eating time. again, which is very consistent with what we've done in the past. I don't want our 2nd through 4th graders out on the playground at the same time with 5th and 6th graders. So that will be kind of a separate experience. But I'm confident that it's going to be a nice balance. And in many ways, when we get to the end of this experience, I think many people are going to step back and say, wow, I mean, we were scared, we were worried, we were willing to be risk takers in terms of the IB learner profile. But as it turned out, this was a wonderful experience.
Okay, thanks.
I just want to add to this idea about Chris Hayward in the card form, but I'm going to task my IT director to think about a virtual way to broadcast Chris Hayward to all 3 schools at the same time, so they can engage him.
Like a hologram. All 3 schools.
Yeah.
Yep, so we'll do
Good
that.
idea.
Can I just assist real quick in this question? So as it relates to our before and after care program, I think I hear the Fernway community, on one hand, they want Fernway kids to have their Fernway identity, but on the other hand, have some integration in the schools. As it relates to our before and after care program, we will operate one site, so the young people will be able to get to know Onaway or Boulevard kids. I think along what Chris is saying with regard to Woodbury, we don't necessarily want 2nd graders romping around with 5th or 6th graders, so we will have some separation among those ages, but really it's an age separation just from a developmental standpoint, so we really want the kids also to build some of those relationships with other youth.
Thanks, Alex. We're at 7, but we're going to get everybody in who's standing, so please go ahead, ask your question.
Well, my question was just answered, which was
about
so thank you. And person
Psychic.
before me, she asked the same question I had. But adding to that, are we still going to have the same programs that are unique to Fernway, like El Sistema and like Chess Club and all these programs that our kids are looking forward to?
I missed the back end of that, so I apologize. But the El Sistema portion, we got the violins and cellos out of there relatively quickly. They were taken to an off-site facility to try to dry them out as quickly as possible. So I still don't know the actual, like where we are with those instruments, and so that's something that we're going to be looking into. Our goal and our plan is, I mean, the experiences that our students are used to having. 3rd grade musical, we're going to have a 3rd grade musical. Obviously, mediation is going to look a little bit different in the sense of it won't be with our kindergartners and our 1st graders, but it's going to be with all of our, our 4th graders will be working with our 2nd and 3rd graders. What will be better about it, about mediation actually, is the fact that we're going to have all of our students outside at the same time, which in the past, in the last couple of years, we weren't able to do that. And so in some ways, things are going to actually improve. My goal is to replicate as many of the hallmarks of Fernway into the 3 different schools. And so if we can get enough chess instructors, we will. I understand that some of the other elementary schools have chess on their, they have chess as well. And so that might be an opportunity where we are kind of commingling and we're able to kind of bring our, our excitement and our chess program into their space and see what we can create.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be very quick again. I'm joined by a 3rd and a 5th grader here, and they had an, is the principal of the Woodbury School still here?
Yes. Mr. Young?
Let's see if I get this question right. Will the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade children have access to the snack bar at Woodbury?
Ma'am, do you have a question? Go ahead.
Thanks, Frank, for that, because I know you are speaking for a lot of young children in our community, so thank you. Again, I want to give a very big thanks to Chris and Dana. We all of this Fernway community, we are holding you in our hearts. And Dana, I know I kept saying to you, you can do this, and you're probably cursing me now, but I know you're going to be great. I know you're going to be great. But again, what Liz asked before, things like COSI and the 4th graders going on the Lolly the Trolley, all of these things, those will still all exist. And how does that work in a divided school system? I mean, we'll make it work, or we'll open it up to the other students, or how is that gonna, what's that gonna look like?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna make it work. I mean, obviously, you know, I have to work through the PTO. I mean, I can't just sit here and
very
promise
good
away
PTO
all the.
with a great leader.
So the events that are funded through the PTO, obviously the PTO board and our treasurer have to be, you know, at play in terms of those decisions. But that's the plan. We had an executive board meeting recently, and I'd shared, you know, my thinking is everything continues on. I mean, I don't, there's been nothing that we've said, well, we won't be able to do that. There might be something that's like that, but we might have to do things more than once. We might have to kind of stage things possibly.
Sure.
We will figure it out, but yeah. I mean,
And you know, you have such a great community behind you. We will make it work. So again, thank you so much. Everyone give them a round of applause, please. We love you. Thank you.
Thank you. You're up.
Okay, I think my next question is for Mr. Glassner. You talked a little bit about how the student supports and some of the specials and the single subject teachers, they're going to be relocated, and it's going to look a little bit different in terms of, you know, I think the phrase used last night was art on a cart, and having a lot of those specials come to the classrooms. But yet you rated the shared space as being a full circle in the Shaker experience. Can you talk a little bit about how you see that being a full example of the Shaker experience? Because it doesn't feel Shaker experience to me.
So first of all, I want to just clarify a little bit about our scheduling. We're in the process of scheduling all of our Fernway activities and classes, so I can't speak in great detail about all of your questions. I will say that we are working to make sure that, to the extent possible, art takes place in art classrooms, and music takes place in music classrooms, and PE takes place in gym spaces. We do know that there are going to have to be teachers that move through multiple classrooms. That currently takes place at many of our schools already. And I think maybe just to clarify the art on a cart phrase, we have many teachers right now who use carts to travel between classrooms with supplies, with Chromebooks. That will be the case with some of our Fernway teachers, with some of our host school teachers. It already is the case with some of our teachers. But we're very confident that we're going to be able to provide a great educational experience in all of those subject areas, both single subject and grade level areas for all of our students. We should have more information about scheduling over the next couple of weeks as we work through some of the details.
Fantastic. I think one of the things that we all appreciate as parents is the richness of the Shaker education. And we want to make sure that, you know, even in a temporary time frame, that's not lost, and that once this time frame passes, that things kind of go back to normal and aren't left with that sort of makeshift kind of feeling. So again, and I apologize, I do have a couple other questions based on what we talked about last night. I wanted to also ask about the interventionalists, the folks that you know, serve a lot of students. You did mention that you're fairly confident that you will be able to meet all of the time specified by the IEPs. We know those folks are already scheduled pretty much to the max, and now they're going to be running between buildings. Is there any thought of hiring additional interventionist staff or bringing on some additional help to help those folks make sure that our students who have those type of supports get everything that they need?
That's an excellent question. We sat down today with our Director of Support Services. We went through each IEP looking at the guidelines. And right now, we do not need to hire anyone. But we realize that what's on paper and what works, it may come up. So what we've been doing is we have left the door open that we will make sure we provide the services. We're hoping, and we don't think we'll need it, but we certainly will do that because that's how you best serve students.
So mine actually is not, oh, this is loud, is it more of a statement than a question, which I know at the beginning we applauded the other principals that were here that have been welcoming, but I thought it was worth, I know there are parents and community members from other schools here, and on behalf of my family, and I know many others, I want to thank the parents and the schools that we know that we are disrupting your school year too, and appreciate that we know your things might be disrupted as well, and thank you for your flexibility and understanding that we're disrupting your year too, and thank you. So I thought we should applaud you too.
We'll see, no other questions. I'm just kidding.
Sorry, it's me again. I only have two more, so again, I appreciate
Why don't we just dive in and do them?
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
All right. One was one that just came up today. So I noticed yesterday when we talked about the parking options, and then when you went over them again today, one of the options was a little bit different, presented a little bit differently today. One of the options yesterday was for expanding the Boulevard parking lot into I believe it's a soccer field. Today, it doesn't sound like that's on the table any longer. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, and that's correct. And as you know, that we are, working this problem each and every day. And what we learned from yesterday's briefing is just that point, right? That we really need to take another look at that option, if you will, or that concept. And what we just determined is that we certainly want to keep the sports fields as a priority, if you will, right? And we would only do that if it was absolutely necessary. But in working with the city, it looks like now that we can develop a on-street temporary parking plan that will alleviate the need to touch that field. So that's what you see now. So as of today, again, there's no consideration to expand that parking lot onto the field.
Very good. Okay, thank you. And then the last question I have is really for our 4 board members in attendance. So I know 2 weeks ago, I asked Mr. Isaacs to stand up and publicly commit to reopening Fernway as our neighborhood elementary school. I understand, he was not at the time able to do that because of all the unknowns. I've been fortunate to have a lot of conversations with him and Ms. Kramer about, their belief and their desire to be able to make that commitment, but just based on the fact of the unknowns, not able to do it as a board. So as I was thinking about this, I had another idea. And what I would ask for not just our board members, but also for Mayor Weiss, who I talked to him about this the other night at the Van Aken District Barbecue, and even our administration folks are up here today. I would ask you all to sign an individual pledge on your own personal platform, not as the board itself, not committing any financial, making any financial decisions with facts that are unknown, but a pledge that says, that you are committed to the ideals of a Shaker education, including the concept of thriving neighborhood schools, and the belief that Fernway School is the heart of the Fernway community and it is in the best interest of the entire Shaker community to repair and reopen Fernway Elementary School if it can be done reasonably and without significantly straining the resources of the Shaker Heights City Schools. I think this would go a long way in setting a lot of the fears and unease that the Fernway community has about what will happen to the school. I think that, at the last meeting, there was a former board member who talked about maybe thinking about closing the school regardless. And I'm not sure that really did much for us as a community in terms of setting aside those fears. And we want to be reasonable. We want to say, we get it. If it's going to be outside of what's possible to repair the school, we want to work with you. But we want to know, we would love to have that personal commitment from you folks that you are committed to neighborhood schools. I'm going to leave these with you at the front table. I would love if you would sign them. And we would gladly host them on our Neighborhood Association website so people know of your commitment to the neighborhood schools and of your personal pledge of wanting to see Fernway reopen. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we did pretty well at 7:15, and it looks like everybody got all the questions they had for tonight. We will obviously be having more meetings going forward as information becomes more available. Keep an eye out on our website and our electronic messages to you, electronic updates, and we will keep you informed going forward. Thank you so much again for coming out tonight, and have a good rest of the evening.